The worn leather briefcase, the architect's jacket with grease stains that shouldn't be there, the way my son David sat slumped in the driver's seat of a beat-up Honda Civic in the hospital parking lot at 11 p.m., eating cold pizza from a box, while his 5-year-old son Ethan slept in a car seat in the back. I almost didn't recognize him. My son, who used to drive a Lexus sedan, who lived in a beautiful craftsman house in Pasadena, who'd won 3 architectural design awards in the past 2 years. Now he was parked under a fluorescent light in the visitor section of Cedars-Sinai, looking like he hadn't showered in days. I'd come to the hospital to visit an old friend recovering from surgery. It was pure chance that I walked through this particular lot. Pure chance that I recognized the silhouette of my son's shoulders, even though everything else about him seemed wrong. David. I tapped on the window. He jumped, nearly dropping the pizza. When he saw it was me, his face went through about 6 different expressions before settling on forced cheerfulness. He rolled down the window. "Mom! Hey! What are you doing here?" "Visiting Linda Chen from my old court." "What are you doing here?" I looked past him at Ethan, fast asleep with a blanket tucked around him. "Why is my grandson sleeping in a car at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday?" "We're just..." He swallowed. "Ashley had a work thing. We're picking her up soon." Ashley, his wife of 6 years, a real estate agent who'd charmed the whole family when David first brought her home. Her father, Thomas, owned half the commercial properties in downtown Los Angeles. From the hospital? At 11 p.m.? She had a late showing. Luxury condos. You know how it is with rich clients. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The weight he'd lost, maybe 20 pounds. The exhaustion etched into his face, the way his hand trembled slightly as he set down the pizza box, the sleeping bag I could see folded in the passenger seat. David Michael Chen. I used my judge voice, the one that had made defendants, lawyers, and occasionally other judges think twice before lying to me. "How long have you been living in this car?" His face crumpled, just like when he was 8 years old and I'd caught him lying about breaking Mrs. Rodriguez's window with a baseball. "Mom. Please don't." "How long?" 3 weeks. He looked away, toward the hospital entrance where doctors and nurses were coming and going. 3 weeks in the car. Before that, I was sleeping in my office at the firm for 2 months. "Your office?" I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Where's your house? The beautiful craftsman on Waverly Drive that you restored yourself?" "Gone." His voice came out flat. "Ashley and Thomas, they took it. Said it was in Thomas's name because he'd co-signed the loan. But Mom, I paid the mortgage. Every single payment for 5 years came from my account. They just changed the deed somehow and rented it out. I don't even know where that money goes." "What about your car? The Lexus?" "Thomas said he needed it for a business deal." "That was 4 months ago. He gave me this Honda, said it was temporary. It's got 180,000 miles on it and the air conditioning doesn't work." I looked at Ethan again, sleeping peacefully despite being in a car in a parking lot. My grandson, who should have been in his own bed, in his own room, with his parents in a real house. "Does Ashley know you're living in a car?" "She knows." Mom. She said it's my fault. That I embarrassed her father by losing the Morrison building contract. That I need to prove I can be responsible before they'll let me back in the house. She has a lawyer who says, because I'm unstable, she's working on getting full custody of Ethan. She said if I tell anyone or fight back, I'll never see him again. The parking lot noise seemed to fade. All I could hear was my son's voice, breaking as he tried to explain how his life had fallen apart. "When did this start?" "About 8 months ago. I lost the Morrison contract because Thomas, he sabotaged it. Told the client I was unreliable, that I had substance abuse problems. None of it was true, Mom. You know I don't even drink. But the client believed him because Thomas is Thomas Brennan, and I'm just some architect nobody's heard of. Then he convinced Ashley that we should move in with him temporarily to save money while I rebuilt my client base. But once we moved into his estate in Bel Air, everything changed. He started controlling everything. My paychecks go directly to an account I can't access. He says it's for Ethan's future, for stability. They took your paychecks? Ashley had me sign papers. I thought it was for tax purposes, for the joint family trust Thomas set up. But it transferred all my earnings to an account in his name. I get $150 a week for expenses. That's it. Everything I earn as an architect goes to them. I felt my hands curl into fists. Did you go to the police? He laughed, a broken sound. I tried. 3 weeks ago, right after they locked me out of the house. The officer said it was a civil matter, a family dispute. Because Ashley's my wife and Thomas is family, and I signed those papers, there's nothing they could do. He told me to get a lawyer. With what money, Mom? I can't even afford an apartment deposit. I've been parking here at night because it's safe, well lit. During the day, I take Ethan to daycare, go to work, pick him up, drive around until he falls asleep. Then I come here. I shower at the gym when I can. I'm so tired I can barely think straight. Where does Ashley think you and Ethan are? She knows we're in the car. She sees Ethan 3 times a week for supervised visits at Thomas's estate. She tells him that Daddy made bad choices, and that's why we can't live in the nice house anymore. Ethan asked me yesterday why I'm mean to Mommy. He's 5 years old and they're already poisoning him against me. I watched my son fall apart in a parking lot, and I made a decision. The same decision I'd made 3 decades ago when I became a family court judge because I believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Listen to me very carefully. I kept my voice calm. I need you to keep doing exactly what you've been doing. Go to work, take care of Ethan, act normal around Ashley and Thomas. Can you do that? Why? Because I'm going to handle this. Mom, you can't. Thomas has lawyers, money, connections. David. I waited until he looked at me. I was a family court judge for 35 years. Do you know how many cases I saw exactly like this? Wealthy, controlling in-laws, who thought money gave them the right to destroy people's lives. I've seen every trick in the book, and I know exactly what Thomas and Ashley have done wrong. More importantly, I know every judge in Los Angeles County. I know forensic accountants, private investigators, and I know the specific laws about financial coercion, parental alienation, and fraud. What they're doing isn't just cruel, David. It's illegal. Hope flickered in his eyes for the first time. Really? Really. But I need you to trust me and stay quiet. Maybe 2 weeks, 3 at most. Can you do that? What are you going to do? I smiled. Not a nice smile. I'm going to remind Thomas Brennan that he picked the wrong family to mess with. The next morning, I made 4 phone calls. The first was to Robert Kim, who'd been my court clerk for 20 years before becoming a forensic accountant. Robert specialized in finding hidden assets in divorce cases. Robert, I need a complete financial workup on Thomas Brennan and his family trust. Judge Chen. He always called me that, even though I'd been retired for 3 years. What am I looking for? Fraud, embezzlement of my son's income, possibly identity theft. I need to know where every dollar of David Chen's salary has gone for the past 8 months. Send me the details. I'll have preliminary results in 48 hours. The second call was to Linda Park, a private investigator who'd worked on some of my most complex custody cases. Linda, I need surveillance on a property in Bel Air and documentation of living conditions. Who's the target? Thomas Brennan. And I need you to document my 5-year-old grandson's living situation. I need proof of parental alienation. I'll start tomorrow morning. The third call was to my old colleague, Judge Patricia Morrison, who now sat on the family court bench. Pat, I need a favor. I'm going to need an emergency custody hearing, probably within 2 weeks. What's the situation? My grandson is being kept from his father through financial coercion and fraud. The father is living in his car while the maternal grandfather controls everything. Send me the case file when you're ready. I'll make room on my calendar. The fourth call was to David's firm. This is Margaret Chen, David Chen's mother. I need to speak to someone about his employment records and whether any communications were sent to clients regarding his employment status. 15 minutes later, I had confirmation that Thomas Brennan had indeed sent emails to 3 of David's clients, claiming David was in rehab for substance abuse. The firm had documentation of everything. That evening, I drove to the hospital parking lot. David's Honda was there, same spot. I could see him inside, helping Ethan with what looked like homework or coloring. I parked next to him and got out. Through the window, I could see Ethan's face light up. "Grandma!" He pressed his face against the glass. David rolled down the window, and Ethan scrambled over his father's lap to hug me through the opening. "Grandma, look what I drew! It's a dinosaur!" "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I ruffled his hair, dark and thick like David's. "Are you having an adventure with Daddy?" We're camping, Ethan said seriously. Daddy says we're on a camping trip. My heart broke a little more. That's right, buddy. David's voice was steady, but I could see the shame in his eyes. Grandma just wanted to say hi. Actually, I brought dinner. I held up the bag from Din Tai Fung, David's favorite restaurant. Thought you boys might be hungry. We ate in the parking lot, Ethan chattering about his daycare and his dinosaur obsession, while David and I exchanged looks over his head. After Ethan fell asleep again, David walked me to my car. I've been doing research. Robert's already found irregularities in the family trust. Thomas has been funneling your salary into offshore accounts. Linda got footage of Ashley telling Ethan that you don't love him anymore, that you chose to leave. That's textual parental alienation. Mom, I don't know what to say. Say you're going to hold on for 2 more weeks. Say you're going to let me fight for you. He pulled me into a hug, and I felt him shake with silent tears. Okay, I can do that. You're my son, I said fiercely. You're a brilliant architect, a wonderful father, and you deserve so much better than this. And I'm going to make sure you get it. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Robert found that Thomas had embezzled over $95,000 of David's salary. The money had gone into accounts in the Cayman Islands, listed under a shell corporation Thomas controlled. He'd also taken out 3 credit cards in David's name without permission. Identity theft. Fraud. Linda's surveillance was damning. She got video of Ashley coaching Ethan to say that David was mean, that David didn't want to be a family anymore. She got footage of Thomas's estate, where Ethan had a lavish bedroom with every toy imaginable, while David and Ethan lived in a Honda with 180,000 miles. The firm provided emails showing Thomas had deliberately sabotaged David's professional reputation, costing him at least $200,000 in potential contracts. I met with David's new attorney, Steven Rodriguez, who'd handled some of the most high-profile custody cases in California. Mrs. Chen, this is one of the clearest cases of financial abuse and coercive control I've seen. Your son has grounds for emergency custody, return of all assets, and criminal charges against both Thomas Brennan and Ashley Chen. How fast can we move? With everything you've gathered, I can file tomorrow and have a hearing by the end of the week. Do it. I went to see David one more time before the hearing, back at the hospital parking lot. It was raining, and I could hear the drops hitting the roof of the Honda. This Friday we're going to court. You, me, and Steven Rodriguez. We're getting Ethan back. We're getting your money back. We're getting your house back. What if they fight it? Thomas has so much money. Let them try. I pulled out a folder. I have proof of embezzlement, identity theft, fraud, defamation, and parental alienation. I have financial records, emails, surveillance footage, and testimony from your employer. Thomas and Ashley have committed at least 7 different crimes. They can either settle or face criminal prosecution. David stared at the folder. Mom, I felt so powerless for so long. I know. But you're not powerless anymore. You have me, and I have 35 years of experience making sure people like Thomas don't get away with this. Friday morning came with typical Los Angeles sunshine, bright and almost mocking given what we were about to do. I picked David up at 7 a.m. He'd borrowed a suit from a colleague and gotten a haircut. He looked more like himself. At the courthouse, we ran into Thomas, Ashley, and their lawyer in the hallway. Thomas was wearing a suit that probably cost more than David's car. Ashley looked perfectly put together in designer clothes. What is this? Thomas demanded. David can't afford an attorney. Actually, Mr. Brennan, Steven said smoothly, I'm representing David pro bono. And his mother, retired Judge Margaret Chen, has been instrumental in preparing this case. Thomas's face went slightly pale. I knew that look. People always got nervous when they realized they were dealing with someone who knew the system better than they did. This is ridiculous, Ashley said. David is unstable. He's living in a car. Because you and your father stole his house, his car, and his money, I said coldly. And we have proof of everything. Their lawyer, a young man who clearly hadn't been briefed properly, looked at the folders Steven was carrying. What kind of proof? In a conference room, Steven laid it all out. The financial records showing $95,000 embezzled, the emails defaming David to his clients, the surveillance footage of parental alienation, the forged signatures on credit card applications. The deed manipulation on the house. The offshore accounts. I watched Thomas's face go from confident to worried to angry to scared. We can explain, Thomas tried. Mr. Brennan, you cannot explain embezzlement, Stephen said. You cannot explain identity theft. You cannot explain defamation. You cannot explain keeping a 5-year-old child from his father through illegal coercion. And you definitely cannot explain telling that child his father doesn't love him. We were trying to help, Ashley said weakly. David was struggling financially. He was struggling because you and your father stole everything from him, I said. His house, his car, his income, his professional reputation. You isolated him, controlled him, and when he tried to resist, you threatened to take his son. That's not help. That's abuse. Their lawyer looked at them. Is any of this untrue? Silence. I'm going to recommend settlement, he said quietly. Because if this goes before a judge, you're both facing serious criminal charges. The settlement took 4 hours to negotiate. David got full custody of Ethan, effective immediately. David got the house on Waverly Drive back, plus all rental income Thomas had collected, over $38,000. David got his Lexus back. David got access to all his embezzled salary, plus 50% penalty, totaling $142,500. Thomas had to pay David's legal fees and issue formal retractions to all clients he'd defamed. Ashley got supervised visitation with Ethan twice a month, contingent on completing parenting classes. Thomas got nothing. No visitation rights, no contact with Ethan, no contact with David unless through attorneys. And if either violated the agreement, we'd file every criminal charge we had. We walked out of that courthouse at 6 p.m. with an emergency order allowing us to get Ethan immediately from Thomas's estate. I'd arranged for 2 police officers to escort us. The look on Thomas's face when we arrived with the police was something I'd remember forever. You can't do this, he said. Ethan needs stability. He needs his father, I said. And now he has him. Ethan came running out when he saw David. Daddy, are you done camping? Can we go home? David knelt down and hugged him so tight. Yes, buddy. We're going home. Just you and me and Grandma. Grandma too? We packed Ethan's things. It took 3 trips to load everything into my car and David's Honda. When we were done, David stood in the driveway looking at Thomas. I trusted you, David said quietly. I married your daughter because I loved her. I let you into my life because I thought you cared about family. But you saw me as something to control. Someone beneath you. You're going to see Ethan twice a month, supervised, until you complete therapy. That's it. We're done. We drove to the house on Waverly Drive as the sun was setting. The tenants had moved out per the emergency order, and we had the keys. Ethan ran through the rooms, excited. Daddy, is this our house? Are we staying here? We're staying here, buddy. Forever. Forever and ever? Forever and ever. That night, after Ethan was asleep in his own bedroom, his actual bedroom with the walls David had painted with clouds and stars, we sat in the kitchen drinking tea. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and still be in the car, David said. This doesn't feel real. It's real. You're home, son. He started crying then. Real crying, the kind he'd been holding in for months. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for fighting when I couldn't fight anymore. Always, I said. You're my son. That's what mothers do. 6 months later, Ethan had his 6th birthday party in the backyard of the Waverly house. David had hung a tire swing from the oak tree, and we'd set up a dinosaur-themed party complete with a paleontologist who brought fossils for the kids to examine. David had gained back the weight he'd lost. The exhaustion was gone. He smiled again, real smiles that reached his eyes. He'd also won 2 new major contracts, including one for a museum that would be his biggest project yet. Ashley had completed 4 months of parenting classes. She saw Ethan twice a month, and according to the supervisor, she was trying, really trying to repair the relationship. Maybe one day Ethan would want more time with her, maybe not. That would be up to him. Thomas had tried to contact David once, through a lawyer, claiming he'd only wanted to help and had made mistakes. Stephen had shut it down with a single letter referencing the criminal charges we could still file. We hadn't heard from him in 3 months. As I watched Ethan blow out his candles and make a wish, David came and stood next to me. What do you think he wished for? I asked. Probably more dinosaurs. David smiled. What did you wish for at 6? Probably a pony. What about you? I don't remember, but I know what I'd wish for now. What's that? He looked at Ethan, laughing with his friends, wearing a paper crown that said Birthday Paleontologist. Nothing. I don't need to wish for anything anymore. I have everything I need right here. I put my arm around my son, my strong, resilient son who'd survived something no one should have to survive and came out the other side. Yeah. Me too. The sun shone through the leaves of the oak tree, casting dancing shadows on the grass. Ethan's laughter rang out clear and bright. And somewhere in that perfect moment, I thought about how family wasn't just about blood or marriage certificates or legal documents. Family was about showing up, about fighting for each other, about standing together when someone tried to tear you apart. Thomas and Ashley had forgotten that. They'd thought money and control were more important than love and respect. They'd been wrong. And my son, who'd been beaten down and controlled and made to feel worthless, had learned something important. He was stronger than he knew. He had people who loved him, and he deserved better. We all do. As the party wound down and parents started picking up their kids, Ethan came running over with frosting on his face and joy in his eyes. Grandma! Grandma! Can we have pizza for dinner? Whatever you want, sweetheart. Daddy too? David laughed. Yes, buddy, Daddy too. Ethan cheered and ran off to tell his friends goodbye. He's happy, David said softly. Really, truly happy. I wasn't sure he would be after everything. Kids are resilient, I said, especially when they're loved. And he knows he's loved. Because of you. No,